Hey all, Bob here, aka Mr. Reef Safe, and today I'm in Plant City, Florida, right here at ACI Aquaculture, and I am going to be interviewing Chris Meckley. That is right ahead. Hey all, I'm here with Chris Meckley of ACI Aquaculture. How you doing, Chris?
Doing well, Bob.
You have
Thanks
had
for coming.
a busy day, haven't you?
It's been a really busy day. I mean, it's, you know, I never know what's going to happen every day. You know, it could be quiet and nobody's around, and Fridays, you know, when I invite somebody over, it always never fails that it just ends up being one of those days.
So what time is it now? About 2 o'clock?
It's about 1:30, 2 o'clock, I would say.
So I got
My
here.
haylights are out, so it's probably close to 2.
I got here roughly at 11, which I'm fine with, by the
Right.
way. You know, Chris kept apologizing. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to make you wait. I'm like, dude, I have got plenty to do, and I just got to wander around and take a look. So I'm like a kid in the candy store, so you don't have to be upset with that at all.
So what'd you think of what you saw?
I'm blown away. You know, you go to stores, you know, you go to like, you know, the store farms, you know, and you know, which is very impressive. Don't get me wrong.
Awesome. We all need to be farming stuff. You know, it's the way of the future for the industry.
But this is like next level, and you know, I mean, I didn't know what to expect when I came today. You know, I was driving here and I was like, you know, like thinking of all like, what is this going to be like? You know, I'm didn't know what to expect, and it reminded me, back in 2012, I went with the Reef Club to SeaWorld, and we did like the behind-the-scene tour, and I kept thinking, oh man, I'm going to get to see all this great equipment that I've never seen before, and like basic stuff. So I was like, subvert expectations, just enjoy it. So that's what I've been doing.
So if that says anything, what he just said, keep it simple.
Keep it
the
simple.
big guys keep it simple. All this fancy gear is great if you're into the fancy gear. But if you're not, you know, I mean, we do a very simple method in here, and we can even talk about that and the evolution of what we used to do and where we are today and why we stick with what we're doing today. And then, you know, I love the story because, of course, I lived it, and there's not very many people that really know it. And, you know, thank you for coming over and wanting to know more about who we are and what we do.
Well, thank you for having me. So I want to know, how did ACI start?
ACI started, I've always, you know, had a passion for anything aquatic from the time I was a kid till present. And when I was growing up, I wasn't allowed to have saltwater in my home because my dad was in the freshwater fish when he was a kid because he tried saltwater. And when you try saltwater back in the 60s, you know, if you didn't have a good bit of money, you know, saltwater fish were, they didn't do well, and it was a lot of the collection and a lot of there was just unknowns. And you know, where we were then and where we are today is like a world of difference. But that was the thing, I think that was the biggest problem, is nobody really knew what they were doing with saltwater fish, and they tried to treat them like freshwater fish, and in reality they can be very similar, but they're not. But so I then took my passion for freshwater fish that my parents helped me fuel, and I fueled it with all my lawn mowing money from the time I was like 12 years on. You know, my brother and I mowed grasses for a lot of people around my little town in Pennsylvania called Shiloh, which is actually a part of West York, Pennsylvania. And we did a pretty good, you know, as a kid, you know, 12, mowing 6 yards a week. Brother and I splitting it. We were making, you know, decent money for teenagers.
So, for young people that want to mow lawns now and make money, just for reference, what did you charge for a lawn back then? Do you remember? Because I remember
back then. I mean, heck, that was.
I was happy to get like $5 or $10.
It was the early '90s, so you know we got $10, I think, and we had some bigger lawns. We were getting, you know, $20, and we just split it. You know, and even if my brother couldn't mow that yard that day, I still gave him $10. So my brother and I had that mutual thing where even though we were in it together, so we still, no matter whether we were able to mow it together or not, we still gave each other half of whatever we made that week.
Will your brother see this by chance?
My brother will definitely be seeing this.
So he can comment below whether or not.
My brother doesn't comment. He doesn't do this stuff. He's not on social media. He's a smart one.
He'll tell us whether you're telling the truth or not.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, you know, I say he's the smart one, but then in reality, is that the way of the future? It is. And unfortunately, my old school mentality, I can't stand it, but I'm engaged in it. You know, I know I have to, you know, to change my old school ways one way or the other. But, you know, he doesn't. But my mom will, of course, be glad to show him the video. They have a smart TV, so all they got to do is go on YouTube and check it out, or Instagram or whatever it's going to be on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Bob. Is it on YouTube?
YouTube and TikTok, Instagram, and it'll probably wind up on Facebook in some way, shape, or form.
So there's 4 avenues for you to view the video. Awesome. Where were we?
Telling me about the beginnings.
The beginnings. Okay, so because of that, you know, the passion I had for it, I was working at tropical fish stores when I was a kid, and you know, the story is, you know, I still think about it and think of how surreal it really is to me because of how everything fell into place. I was working at a shop up in Pennsylvania called Tony's Tropical Fish, and you know, it is no longer in business. Tony's like in his, you know, mid 70s now, but I actually was able to at one point sell corals to him when he was my mentor, you know, growing up.
That's cool.
And my first job was from Lonnie Langione, and Lonnie, yeah, I called you out on this one. If it wasn't for Lonnie and Scott, they were cousins that ran the shop, I probably would have never gotten into African cichlids the way I did as a teenager because they rigged the drawing for the free giveaway of the $100 gift certificate because they loved me so much. Because my dad, we had every week, my dad and I and my brother and my sister sometimes, we would go I think it was Monday, when Dad got off work. That was what I looked forward to. We'd hit every shop in town. No matter whether we bought something or not, we'd go visit every shop in town.
So that was back in the 90s, right?
That was back in the early 90s. I mean, I was still in, you know.
If I remember correctly, because I worked in fish stores back in the 90s, Monday was New Fish Day anyway.
No, for the one fish store, we still went there every Friday because that was
Okay.
Fish Day. And it was the closest one, which was Tony's Tropical Fish. I used to mow his grass, so he helped fund my addiction. You know, I used to go and, you know, I'd ride my bike. It was a good 15-minute ride for me to get there.
The first one's free.
Yeah, you know, and African cichlids were my thing because they were the next best thing for me. I didn't have saltwater because Mom and Dad said, no, I don't care how much, you know, if you're living here under my roof, you're not putting saltwater in our house. And I respected that, you know, so I took the next best thing in my opinion, which was African cichlids or, you know, discus, angelfish, you know, pistogrammas, you know, anything that was, you know, not the normal I had to have because it was fascinating to me. And I got bored with that as I got older. And when I started working for Lonnie Langione at Pet World, he didn't have saltwater. He moved from East York to West York. And when I got my job, he said, I'm not putting saltwater back in and I'm like, oh, but I still got to do what I loved for my job. And then he closed his doors and I ended up going to work for Tony. And then that's when I really started getting a love for saltwater fish and corals.
So what year was your first saltwater tank then?
My first saltwater tank, well, let me finish my story.
Okay.
It's kind of funny how it all works out. It all incorporates into the name of the company and everything, how it all worked out. So I'm working for Tony's Tropical Fish. I'm a kid, I'm 20. You know, I got no drive. I'm not going anywhere. I really didn't know what I was doing. And, you know, I was kind of lost, but I enjoyed my job at Tony's Tropical Fish. So, funny story is my wife, now Amanda, came in there one day to set up a saltwater aquarium. And I could kind of tell she was checking me out, you know, but I was like, you know, and I was, you know, of course interested. And next thing you know, she come in the first time, she leaves, she gets things set up. She comes back in the second time and I'm testing her water and I'm like, you're okay to put fish in. And she buys her first fish. She goes and comes back again and she doesn't buy anything, but she comes in and she goes, she's with her best friend, Freddie, who's a dude, of course, lives with him and everything, but they were like best friends. And she comes in and she goes, Freddie leaves, and she comes up and asks me out. Hey, you want to go out and have a beer and talk fish? I'm like, yeah, sure. So we did, and here we are today. That was in 1998 when I was just 21, maybe. Yeah, I was 21, and this was in right before Memorial Day. And we went on a few dates. We enjoyed each other's company, and we just kept going from there. And we kind of put Memorial Day as our day of when we really started, you know. And it's been us ever since. So the reason why I wanted to say that is because I always wanted to. My mom always told me when I was, you know, a kid. She always reminded me, and when I started ACI, she said, you know, your dream as a kid was to have a fish farm in Florida. And I'm like, you know, that was because you guys wouldn't let me have saltwater. And now that now that I have saltwater, I started ACI because I had a shop in Tampa. When I moved down here, I learned how to do a lot of packing by working for a very large tropical fish farm, which 5D Tropical. Actually, they're probably the largest working fish farm in the state, maybe the country. But anyhow, so I learned a lot on not the export side of it, but the shipping side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, that's useful for me. And then I bought a shop in Tampa. Partner was bad. Got a job at Tire Kingdom. Hated my job. Really learned that I wasn't very employable at that point in time in my life because I had a lot of ideas and nobody wanted to help take my ideas, and which is fine. I'm just a little guy and I'm not high up on the totem pole, and I'm like, I want to be the man. I don't want to be talking to the man. I want to be the man.
Yeah.
So after a lot of weird things happened with my life, my daughter was in the hospital, my manager told me I had to be at work, and I told him to get pissed off because my daughter's life is more important than him being able to go away because he didn't have me to cover.
Yeah.
And I quit my job at Tire Kingdom. ACI had already started back in January. I worked for Tire Kingdom, but then I started I started up ACI on the side, and I borrowed $10,000 from the Discover card. They were, you remember back then, and was it 2007? They were handing out 0% interest credit cards, finance checks like they were bread, like it was candy. And I'm like, I don't like credit, but you know what? Go big or go home. If you don't try, you never know what's going to happen.
Got to take a risk somewhere.
And I've been taking risks ever since. I mean, I risk my livelihood every day of my life because I've got an open air environment, and I could come in tomorrow and everything could be dead. That's a big enough risk.
Yeah, I've got so many questions just based on that. But what does ACI stand for?
ACI, and it was the next step in the process. My daughter's name is Isabel.
Mm-hmm.
My son's name is Isaac. When I started ACI, it was in 2007. Isabel was only a year and a half old. And that $10,000 loan got me everything set up, equipment, and my first livestock that I fragged, that I was healing, to go to market. So that 10 grand then got covered by everything I sold off the first initial investment. I paid myself back, paid that loan off. When I incorporated the name, because I didn't do that until May 23rd of 2007, I'm trying to figure out what to name my company, and I'm, all these weird names going through my head, and I'm like, Amanda, Chris, and Isabel, ACI.
There you go.
There you go, ACI. And I don't know, that gets me kind of weird because that's really truly my beginnings, and ACI's beginnings was because I kept saying that my wife and my kids, my daughter, are the most important thing in my life, and why shouldn't I be reminded of that every day I go to the farm?
Yeah.
That because of my wife and my daughter, that's why I'm doing this, is for them, and it is because I have a drive and I have a love for anything in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And what I knew about corals then was not even close to what I know now, but I've been doing this, saltwater for 27 years. And, now that I'm doing what I truly love, and, my wife and my daughter are a part of it, that's huge for me. And then, of course, Isaac came along years later, and we were like, what are we going to name him? We can't go off the ACI thing. So, we were just looking at, we were talking about it. I'm like, I like Isaac. And she's like, I really like Isaac too. She's like, I'm glad you said that. She's like, I think we said it. It's Isaac if it's a boy. Well, we knew it was a boy at that point because we never even picked the girl's name because it was, it was done. But so that's what ACI stands for, is Amanda, Chris, Isabel, Isaac. And that's basically the beginnings.
So it's a long I.
A long I, yes, a long I.
ACI.
ACII. And then, another part of the story of the name of the company, and this I didn't know until 2018 when I was over in Indonesia. I've started getting all these text messages or WhatsApp messages from people I had talked to that were trying to get me to buy corals from Indonesia from them. And I'm very, very strict with who I buy from. I have to trust them. I have to have a business relationship with them. And if they're going to give me the opportunity if I'm going to give them an opportunity to become a vendor of mine, it's my terms and my terms only. You cannot steer me away from it unless I have nothing else, and then I got to abide by their terms.
Yeah.
You want my business, here's my terms. I've never messed it, never done anybody wrong in life. I'll give you my honest feedback, and if it's good enough, we'll continue. But ACI over in Indonesia stands for Aku Cinta Indonesia.
Okay.
So if anybody knows Indonesian, which most people of course don't, Aku is I, Cinta is love, Indonesia. So my company going into Indonesia already says I love Indonesia aquaculture.
That's awesome.
And I didn't know it, and it was really just a big shit grin on my face when my supply line tells me what it means, and all their employees were yelling "Achi, Achi" when I walked in the door. They knew me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is weird. But it was kind of surreal to even know that happened. So everything happens for a reason, I look at in life, and the fact that I built such great relationships with 5 or 6 suppliers in Indonesia, and their employees know me as Achi. And it's it's a cool story. But that's the beginnings and a little bit into the history of ACI. But we started off in the garage with 300 gallons of water running and 1,500 acro frags
that is
that
amazing.
I sold for a wholesale value of $10. And because the main reason why the idea popped up was because I was just a hobbyist and my wife was the breadwinner, and that didn't sit well with me. And I actually just told her this whole part of the ACI story because it was time to tell her why I wanted to be the breadwinner, because I grew up in a family where the man was the breadwinner. Nowadays things are a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I accept that. But I don't care who you are, you're not going to get it out of my head the way I was raised that the man is always going to be the breadwinner no matter what. And I had to do what I had to do to, try to get to that point in my life so that I satisfied my own head. In reality, ACI came about because of my own, how do you put that? Greedy head, not greedy. What is it? What would the term be? I had to.
Ambitious.
Yeah, that's another way to put it. But I didn't want her to be the breadwinner my whole life. I had to be the breadwinner. So there was no doubt in my mind that with what I was doing here, and with her support, especially after 2009 when the housing market crashed, she worked for a company called Environmental Stoneworks, which was a stone veneers for homes, a widget company.
Yeah.
And when the housing market crashed, their business went through the floor. Who gets slashed first? The highest paid employees. Yep. Or they start from the top down usually. Sometimes they start from the bottom, which never made sense to me. They're the ones that do the work. You got to get rid of the people that are above. It is what it is, but never understood all that. But so she lost her job, and we were surprisingly calm because ACI was just 2 years old. We were evolving. We went from just doing acro frags to doing all kinds of LPS frags, and we were selling them wholesale. And nobody else was doing that in the country other than like ORA, but they were a coral farm. They weren't what I call chop shop, because in reality, I don't sugarcoat things. I'm not going to call it something that it's not. If I call it a conditioned frag, it's still a chop shop in my head because it's a wild coral cut into pieces. We heal them for weeks before they get sold. So is a conditioned chop shop frag a better term? But I don't know. I don't really care.
But I think there's room in the market for all of that.
It is. But the problem is because I am so blunt and I don't like the sugarcoating of things, because I just think it makes people weak. Sorry. And if you want to cut that out, you can, but I don't think it's necessary.
No, leave it in.
It's if it's about feelings, then it's not about reality and it's not about life. And I care about reality and logic and life. And feelings, if I hurt your feelings in some, I'm not gonna be, a complete jerk. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but if it did, if it's something that should be just logical thinking, then I'm not gonna. Yeah. It is what it is. But
straight shooter.
Straight shooter. That is foot and mouth sometimes, and other times it is what it is. Again,
I've got athlete's tongue, so I know the feeling.
From New York, yeah, I can see that. I had some friends from New York, and he was always, the worst potty mouth ever, and my wife always knew when I was talking to him because I had the same problem. I still have that problem, but I try to keep that reserved if I can. I am here now, so
you're doing good.
But so from from the standpoint of the evolution from the 300-gallon system in the garage. We ended up evolving into having, I think it was if I remember correctly, it was 2,000 gallons was in my garage at the end. Went from 300 to 2,000 gallons, and we were importing.
And how long was that?
That was from 2007, and we moved into this facility here the year that Isaac was born. Isaac was born in November 11th of 2022. And I'm sorry, 2022. 2012. No, 2012.
So if you want, you can say it again. I'll just cut that part out.
The company's been in this building.
Yeah.
So we were in my home, in my garage, from 07 till the summer of 2012. And that was the best move we made, because at that point we were importing already, and we had a huge following, and because we didn't have overhead in our home, we made money. Way more than I make now. But that's okay. I don't care. I do what I love every day.
Yeah.
And it keeps my head sane. Because if I didn't have this, sometimes I don't know, because this is what keeps me relaxed when I'm in a bad mood. I go stick my face in a view box and look at my corals, and everything kind of goes away for a short period of time. And that's, I think, a benefit that not a lot of people get in life. And the fact that I'm living the American dream, it's still surreal to me. The fact that I do support my family, and I couldn't do it without my wife. My wife is, when she got laid off, we were relatively calm about the whole scenario, and it happened at a perfect time, because I wired money to Indonesia 2 separate times and got burnt. And we were getting to be to the point where, okay, we can't figure out how to import, and again, big risks get no without risk you get no reward. And she's like, you want to try it again with somebody I've been chatting back and forth with, and I'm like, I'm going to push for terms if I can. I couldn't get the terms. Then I got a call out of the blue from, he's still a current supplier of mine, a friend of mine now. He's in the US, but he's really good friends with the supply line over in Indonesia, and he was transshipping. But he was not transshipping to retail stores, it was to other wholesalers, and because he understood the chain of command.
Yeah.
And in this industry, and it used to be a strict chain of command where you had your hobbyists buying from the retail stores buying from the wholesalers, and then the wholesalers buying from overseas. The wholesalers had the biggest risk in it all.
Yeah.
Now it's a shit show. You hear about stores banding together and buying from overseas. That doesn't help me as a wholesaler. When you eliminate the middleman for every industry, industries suffer. And what we do with our corals separates us from, I would say, almost every other wholesaler that's out there, because it's not about the money. It's not about how fast can we get it in and get it out of here. It's about how fast can we heal the animals to make sure that they are healthy enough to put back into a box and ship across the country, around the world.
If I can interject, I know quite a few of the store owners here in Tampa, and they all speak very highly of you, and they've all said the same thing. You will not sell a coral if it's not healthy, if there's a risk. You will tell them no. So
I mean, I very rarely have walk-ins, and I had a storefront that came today, and they know how I feel about them purchasing corals, and it just so happened that it laid out that he was coming the day after we were getting 3 shipments. When it comes down, I thought it was two, but then I realized it was 3 separate permits, and I forgot that the one company has their wild and their mariculture, and I got a very tiny mariculture shipment, a tiny wild shipment, and a bigger wild shipment. So I don't like selling anything that came in, and he knows how I feel, the guy that was here this morning, and he was like, man, those freaking torches are unbelievable. And I'm sure you saw them.
I saw them, and I saw his reaction. He was very impressed.
He wanted them so bad, and he looked at me and he's like, how much are the torches? And I'm like, you know how I feel about putting them back in a bag. They've only been here for like not even 12 hours. And he's like, yeah, and I respect that. He's like, but I want them so bad. And I'm like, dude, I'll tell you what. I said, you know how I feel about it? Don't you dare call me if there's a problem with them in 2 or 3 or 4 days. I said, if they're sitting here, I know what to do. If there's a problem, I will fix them. They will not die. If there's anything that I have to do with it, and I go through every step possible to make sure that every animal has a fighting chance, even the ones that I know in the past were doomed because of bad water or a broken bag or whatnot. I know how to fix them now. And I'm getting ready to share that with the world someday, at some point. I can't wait to get that out there because it's really not, it's like a prophylactic treatment, and we don't know long-term effects on the actual bacteria strains that are being affected, but we are always evolving and trying to figure those things out. So we just set up a control system. It's only one control, but we're getting data from super healthy elegance corals and euphyllias, and we're putting some to sacrifice for the sake of the experiment that we've done that we have good data on. We're going to get more information because now I know if I see the issue with the elegance corals in that separate system, I know exactly what to do and I can get them turned around in 3 days.
Yeah.
Or no, 5 days. So I hope I don't have any issues because the ones I put in there, I didn't realize how insanely beautiful they are. Red elegance corals. I mean, if people have never seen a red elegance coral, the first time I saw one, I was like, that's not real. And you saw some over here, and you're just like probably the same thing. You probably never saw one before, did you?
Just incredible color.
It's amazing what relationships do for business. And I always knew that they were important, but the fact that my supply line treats me like family, and they know what I like, and I don't have to order anything ever. I don't know at all what's coming. You have my CITES permit, fill it. Well, Mr. Chris, we have this. I don't care what you have. Do you think I'm going to like it? If you think I'm going to really like it, and that's not going to be like, then put it in the box. I want Christmas morning when I open my shipment up because I don't want to know what's in there. I want to be happy. I want to be excited. It's probably going to be late at night, and I want something to stimulate me rather than knowing what comes in.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been here for about 24 hours now straight.
Almost. No, I went home last night.
Okay.
So I didn't really sleep, so I think I got 2 hours of sleep.
And what time did you come in to get your shipment?
My shipment, I worked yesterday I got here at 7. I didn't leave here till midnight. I went home, couldn't sleep, finally slept at 3, got up at 5:30 to get the kids ready for school. Took Isaac to school and came here, and I haven't stopped since. So, we're going on like 2 hours of sleep here in 48 hours. Soon.
His excitement over the corals is what's keeping him going. I have seen him. I haven't even seen a yawn out of him yet.
He won't.
And he's just, it's like watching a beehive. He is just move.
I don't know how I do it, to be honest with you. I really, I'm fortunate that, I can do this because I am dealing with so much life that is so important to me, to the research we've done, to my family, to the people that are my customers, to a lot of people. And the fact that I can keep going day by day with minimal sleep, I still just can't. I don't understand it. But when I crash, I crash. Like tomorrow morning, I don't expect to be out of bed, and I hate sleeping past like 8. It'll probably be, I probably won't be able to sleep tonight. So it'll probably be like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning again before I fall asleep, and it'll be like noon when I finally get out of bed, and then I'll be like, damn it, my day is friggin' gone. And that's what I can't stand about it. I like getting up early. I like getting something done. I feel like I got a sense of accomplishment. When I don't, and I'm up at, late in the morning, I just feel like my day is gone. And
no, you're not here on the weekends.
I still come in.
You come in, okay.
It's a 7-day-a-week job.
Okay.
When you own this place, you can not ever relax. That's me. My wife gets the ability to do that. Daniel and all my crew gets the ability to do that. But I know for a fact that if there is an issue, every single one of the people that is involved with ACI Aquaculture would be here in a heartbeat to make sure that we're fixing and correcting whatever issue there is. When we had Hurricane Ian run through here, as soon as I could get here, I got here. And literally 10 minutes later, after I got the generators out and we were getting ready to hook them all up, he's here helping me, and he stayed with me. And then we made a pact saying, okay, you take tomorrow, I got the day, I sleep here tonight, you sleep here tomorrow night, and we do that until we get our power back. And I slept here one night, Daniel slept here one night, and when I got in the day, Daniel's not a morning person. I got here and Daniel was like, I'm going home. I'm like, go, get out of here. And I'm here and we were trying to figure out, okay, it's 3 days, the 3rd day. Now we got to cycle lights. I had one of my guys went to go get an extra generator that was big enough to run some lights. So we're a tight-knit crew. before my crew, it was my fault in a lot of cases with my crew, but this crew is going to be the crew that I want to build my team to move us farther into the future so that we can get our land, build our massive facility, and have a crew that actually loves, cares, and respects about every single animal they take care of. And that's what I'm getting out of what I have now. And I hope that's what we can continue with, because you got to love what you do when you work here. And if it doesn't, it shows, and I'll know it, and it won't be very long anymore.
Speaking of Hurricanian, now, we were supposed to do this interview a couple of weeks ago, and of course,
the day after Hurricane.
Yeah, that was when it was supposed to happen. So we had to delay it. Obviously, you didn't have power. Now, we know that it kind of went south of us, and the south really got the brunt of it. And for anyone down there, we're really sorry about that.
It's
hopefully
sad.
You're getting the help you need. But other than losing power, did you have any kind of damage, any kind of loss, anything?
I don't really like to talk about it. I mean, I talked about it a little bit on a little live video I did the Sunday after the hurricane went through and we had power again. I was quite impressed with everything. I mean, it was 7 systems, 18,500 gallons of water, and all the return pumps running, keeping flow going. All my systems basically were flawless. I had no issues. One system in particular, I was doing a new flow method, and I used to have my return lines come in like they are on this system behind us here, where you have the return line comes in and then it shoots water flow throughout the tank. And that system in the back, because the majority of my acropora, my mother colonies from my acros were back there, I decided that the biggest problem I have in a 12-foot by 6-foot tank is settlement of detritus. Because no matter what you do, you're gonna have a dead spot in your tank. Unless you've got, a washing machine in there. I mean, and you can achieve not having dead spots, but it's just a matter of making sure when you figure out where the dead spot is, you put a power head and blow that water around. I had an idea to help with the dead spots being concentrated in an area that were easy for us to get in and clean out instead of taking all the racks out, get in there and siphoning and making it a day job. This actually worked extremely well because I took a 6-foot wide spray bar and had my return pump, which is just an equivalent to the hobbyist is like a hammerhead.
Okay.
And I used to use hammerheads until they became a complete nightmare for me. They're not for me. They're not for my application. They're for hobbyists, not for a commercial application. So we got
different
commercial
grade
pumps.
of equipment.
Completely different grade. I mean, the build quality, everything. So at that point, ACI was here for a while. We were able to afford a higher quality pump. When I moved in here from the home, we didn't borrow any money. We moved in here and we actually used our cash flow to build this entire facility out. And I still do that to this day. I don't borrow money. I don't want to have debt. I want to use what we've earned to continue growing the company, because my day will come where we're done growing and eventually I'll start being able to reap the benefits of all the hard work we put in over the last 15 years. But the bottom line with that is we were always evolving everything we do, and changing the flow pattern was the demise for the acros in the back. And it wasn't catastrophic. I mean, to me it was, but to most people, like, oh, that's not bad. I have 192 colonies of acros that you grew from frags this big, and you have a story on them. Some of them were in my systems back there since probably the first 2 years that we were in here. So 8-year-old colonies that we've launched multiple times, that we've sold, 100, 200, 400 frags off of yearly are now gone, and we never get them back. But I get them back because, thank God I have customers that respect what we do, and the Reefers Code's in play. Where if you don't know what the Reefers Code is, folks, it's a thing that died a long time ago in the early 2000s, when everybody thought that they had a frag tank and there was $1 to be made on their corals. And everybody had a business because they had a frag tank. And nobody was the camaraderie way like it used to be when you were growing up, when I was growing up. If you had an acro frag or an acro colony that you wanted to give to your buddy, you gave him a frag, he gave you a frag. And if you lost yours, he still had it.
You bank it.
You bank it. It's a coral bank.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Richard Ross and, my friend, God rest his soul, Jake Adams, about it. You know, and Jake and I had this Reefers Code thing that we went back and forth with, and he had saved me when Irma went through in 19 or 18. I sent him a package of like, I don't remember, it was like 30 or 40 farm lineage acros, and I had the story behind them all. And I didn't lose my Pink Panther acro during Irma, but Jake had it. I did lose a couple of pieces that Jake ended up saying, dude, you just sent this to me. He's like, you did this, you said it, you were sending me a bunch of stuff in case you lost it during the hurricane, that I had it. And I said, take a frag off of every one of them, keep one for yourself, send me the rest back. I got them back, and in 2 years, I'll have them available in the market again. Well, that's how it worked out, and that was a saving grace for a lineage coral that I was so, put so much time and effort into growing out. I was able to get it back.
There's a lot of talk about like old reefer versus new reefer.
Big time.
There's a lot that can be learned from the older reefers. I get frags of stuff and I just give it away.
Yes.
I just want to pay it forward, and I think there's a lot to be said for that.
I got Pierre at the Coral Corral. He's the same way. We used to buy and sell each other's stuff, so we had it. And I'm like, dude, what are we doing? I'm like, well, you're old school. I'm like, why aren't we? You want an ORA, the lineage pearlberry, because you don't have it, because you haven't been able to find it, because nobody really has much of it. I'm lucky enough to have it on my farm, and it is lineage from ORA, from the original release. You want it? Okay, I want this one. I want this one, this one, this one, this one, in your big display tank.
For anyone that's not in the Tampa Bay area, Coral Corral is probably, if not the biggest, one of the biggest shops in the area.
Marine only, and that's why there's a bunch of shops that are around that are big, but they are a combination, saltwater and freshwater. So Pierre's a complete addict. He's got a 600-gallon display right when you walk in the door, and
that is phenomenal, by the way.
Just acros. I mean, there's Montes in there. There's a handful of anacroporas and a handful of other corals, but it's mainly just acros and Montes, and he's got everything I've ever released, so I get it all back if I have a problem, and I give him corals when he's got something that I don't have. And the thing that stinks about it all is I sold the damn thing to him, and I'm trading him one of my frags back for one that I sold to him already. But that's the great thing about having customers that support you on a regular basis. They get a coral that I didn't think about keeping, but as it kept in their tank, it evolved into a gem and looks different than it did when it arrived. And it's the fact that it's been in captivity for years now. You can pretty much think it's going to keep that color, and that's he's kind of like my bank for stuff I thought I should keep but never did.
That is another good reason for supporting your local fish stores.
Yes.
The local fish stores, they support ACI, and ACI supports the local fish stores. You can buy online and probably save a couple bucks, but then what happens when those fish stores go out of business? You lost that source of knowledge.
Well, I always say this is what I've always said about buying online. If you can buy the coral locally and you have a short travel time from bag to tank, why would you jeopardize the animal by putting it in a box, thinking that UPS or FedEx or whatever courier that you're using literally gives a shit about your live coral? If they lose it or damage it, to them it's nothing.
No, we all know how Fed Up uses throw the boxes around.
I won't use them because of the fact of our track record with them. UPS has been really good to us, but they still have their moments. But every courier is going to have moments. It's never going to be perfect. But if you can support your local fish store, and you want something that, say, somebody that's got a farm I've got corals from Jason Fox that I keep the Jason Fox name on. I've got corals from Top Shelf Aquatics that I keep the Top Shelf name on. From ARC, from TCK, from all the, I am one to pass on the lineage, not like a lot of shops buy my lineage stuff that I imported the coral. I kept the frag. I took 2 years to grow the damn thing out, and I sell the coral to a customer, and they're all about themselves, and they put their own name on it. And I'm like, what was the point of spending the money on that frag if you're not going to appreciate the lineage of it? Because that's
credit where credit is due.
And names are about lineage. This marketing scam that goes on nowadays with corals having a name, Every coral's got a stupid name on it, but they don't have a backstory. They don't have lineage. They have nothing. And it's like, all it is just about this right here. If you know me, this right here, I wipe my rear end with it because I could care less about it. If these aren't happy, money doesn't make any difference to me because without healthy animals, I don't make money. And if I'm flipping animals, like a lot of places do, that catches up to you in the long run. That's a short-term gig in most cases. I want to be long-term. I don't want to stop doing this. I want to do this the rest of my life. I want my kids to take on my legacy down the road. My wife will, if something were to happen to me, she will not let anything happen in this place. I know for a fact. It's part of us. It's part of my entire family. No matter whether it's immediate, my wife and my kids, or my mom and dad and everybody else, they all are there and understand and respect what we do here. So it's names don't buy a coral by a name unless you know the name and you know the company that actually named the coral can give you a backstory. In time, my website, and everybody, doesn't matter if you're a customer of mine or just a hobbyist that wants to know more about ACI, we will, and it's going to be a slow process, but I have a backstory on everything that was ever released from ACI right now. It's all up here though.
I won't buy a coral online. I rarely do that anyway, but I won't buy one unless it has the scientific name. I don't care about the phony baloney name.
I want the Looney Tune name?
Yeah. I mean, those are fine and all, you know, but it's...
I get it.
I want to know what the coral is.
Right, I get it, but I still can't just wrap my head around, you know, a wild coral being cut up into pieces and somebody putting a name on the frag just to sell the frag.
Yeah.
That is where I think it's...
And the name changes from place to place.
Exactly, it hurt the industry. And I think that, you know, and again, I'm so old school. I believe that if you want a reef aquarium, you need to think about it logically and hard, because they're a money pit if you don't know what you're doing. I mean that. They're a money pit. I mean, I used to spend a lot more money in here until we devised the new method, and it's freaking phenomenal, and it saves us a ton of money. Reefers can do it in multiple ways, and there's not a wrong way, and there's not a right way. Yeah, my way is the best. Because it's cheap and it works. But I mean, we saved 15 grand the first year we used my method. And now I think we've got like a $200 monthly expense on additives for 18,500 gallons. I know reefers that have 500-gallon tanks that spend more than $200 a month, and they're stubborn and they won't listen to me. They see what I do, but they're just like, I don't know. I just keep spending your money. The money pit is never going to stop, because as your tank grows, it gets more expensive.
Now, I won't have you go into this, because I know you did this on Rapping with Reef Bum, but you know, the whole thing with the kalkwasser right into the protein skimmer. Now,
no, kalkwasser does not go into the protein skimmer.
Sorry.
Calcium reactor
goes
into the protein skimmer to scrub the CO2 that's injected into your reactor that's going into your system. No matter what, if you have a calcium reactor, just put your effluent line, whether you're putting a mill a minute or a mill an hour in your system from your reactor, put it into the venturi or into the intake pump of your calcium reactor, because
calcium
reactor to the protein skimmer, because a lot of people don't know what a protein skimmer really does for your aquarium, and it's not going to add oxygen. It's not going to remove a lot of things a lot of people think get removed, like calcium and alkalinity and magnesium. It removes proteins, it removes dead bacteria, and it scrubs the hell out of CO2. When you shut your tank down, if you were measuring the CO2 levels in it, if you shut the protein skimmer off, your CO2 levels go through the roof quite quickly, and your pH goes to the floor. The protein skimmer back in, your pH starts to go back up, and your CO2 level goes back down. So why wouldn't you run the effluent from your calcium reactor, which has a lot of CO2 in it, and carbonic acid, which is the devil for your aquarium, right into your protein skimmer to have as much of that scrubbed out of there as you possibly can? And on our system, 6.5 pH coming out of it at 2 liters a minute, going into our protein skimmer, the pH in the system was at like a peak of 8.1, and coming out of my reactor, or my protein skimmer, the pH was 8.05. So I had a 0.05 drop coming out of the protein skimmer, but 2 liters a minute is going into it at 6.5. That's a pretty doggone good, boost, if I didn't have the protein skimmer on and I checked the water coming out, so the bubble blasters weren't running, the pH coming out of there was in the 7s. So that 6.5 at 2 liters a minute was really suppressing the pH in the system.
Yeah.
And this eliminates that almost completely.
Good way of doing it.
I even talked to my buddy Julian Sprung. I talked to Jake. I talked to all these old school reefers about it, and nobody thought about doing it that way. And when I told Julian, I said, dude, I just plugged it into my protein skimmer.
Can we call that the Meckley method?
I do. There's a whole thread. If you want to go watch a bunch of people bash me going reef to reef and check it out, they keep telling me that I'm wrong about kalkwasser, and I say, come and look. I'm wrong, all right. Everything's dead. They're all plastic.
You can be wrong and just reap the benefit of it.
Right.
All right. So let me give some rapid fire questions here.
Yes.
Okay. So what was your very first coral?
A polythoa.
Do you remember what one?
It was just the common green button polyps out of. I'm not good with soft coral Latin names. You tell me any hard coral, I'll give you the Latin name all day long. And we can debate whether or not one or the other is right. You do a soft coral, I can give you a lot of genus names, but I can't give you down to species level.
So green polyp.
There's a green button polyp. It's a polythoa.
Okay.
That was my first coral.
Okay.
And it was a colony, because back when I started, frags were not something that were thought of. They were there, but they weren't.
Another guess.
Right. So it was a polythoa. I'll give you the second coral.
Okay.
It was Euphilia or Fimbrophilia para ancora, and I bought it from that fish place in Pennsylvania with 25 polyps on it.
Oh wow.
And I paid $40 for it. That was back, oh my gosh, 25 years ago. So it's been a while.
He wants my attention.
Yeah. Oh, this is my buddy. What's up, Monty? My wife's here. You get to meet the figment of your imagination.
I said earlier that I did not believe Amanda
you're
existed.
a figment of his imagination.
I see Amanda now. I've never seen her on camera, so you're just gonna have to trust me that Amanda is real.
Oh, she won't go on camera. Don't worry about that. You'll never see her on camera. Maybe one day, but she won't go on camera.
Maybe that's why the rumor started that she's not real.
Yeah. A lot of people have emailed with her and talked to her on the phone, but a lot of people have not met her because she does a lot for the company, and she could do a lot of that from home.
Yeah.
She loves being here, and last night it was a complete. She's trying to say she's the best fragger on the farm. All right, let's have a frag off. I'll take you up on that one. She does really well. She learned everything from me. When ACI and she lost her job, that's when she really started learning. She loved it because she set up a saltwater tank and asked me out on a date. You got to remember that part of it. So she always had a drive for this, and she learned everything that I learned. I knew a lot before she started into this, and she learns from me. She listens to me. She absorbs everything like a sponge, and she can help. She helps people on Instagram because I don't go on Instagram. So just so you know, if you're on Instagram and you're asking a question to ACI, I'm not responding. That's my wife Amanda, because she knows what to say because she's heard it a billion times. So don't worry about that. You're going to get the proper information, and if you don't, it's a mistake, and we will definitely get it corrected.
Yeah, my wife, this is not her hobby. She likes looking at the tank and stuff, but she knows well enough now when something is going to happen to the tank. Mm-hmm. She'll say, I think something's going to happen with that coral. And I'll look at them like, no, it's probably not. And then sure enough, something starts to happen. I'm like, now I got to work on it. I'm like, I should have just listened to you in the first place.
Yep.
And I've been doing this for, I think, about 27 years. And, she's been doing this about 4. So.
Well, she had fish only, and that's what her gig was fish. I wanted the corals. So I did the corals, and then, of course, we graduated the corals once we moved to Florida. But yeah, that was interesting, too, moving all of our stuff from Pennsylvania to Florida. We packed it all up in a U-Haul and went to Tony's Tropical Fish, my old job, and we oxed up the corals and the fish, and we made a beeline for 22-hour drive straight to Tampa where we were staying, set the thing up. The first hour we were here, we had all the fish and corals back in the tank.
That's
and
awesome.
I didn't lose a darn thing. That was pretty, I was scared. I was still a kid in my opinion. 27 years old was still a kid to me. You still got a lot to learn in life. If you're 26 and you think you know a lot, you got a lot to learn. I'm still learning, and I hope I never stop.
That's what makes this hobby so fun. There's always something more to do. If you listen to Rich Ross and Ben Johnson on Reef Beef, you know, they say the dishes are never done.
No.
And you know what? If the dishes were done, I'd probably get bored of the hobby.
The dishes are always dirty, meaning you wash them and they're still dirty. You got to wash them over and over and over. You never get them clean. I mean, you really never get them clean. I mean, there's always something you can be doing. Even if you're over here and you know, I'm over here and I can't think of anything to do. All I got to do is walk away for a little bit or start looking at my corals and I can find something like that. Okay, I see this. Okay, let's do this. You know, but that's never ending.
With a home aquarium, you can actually just say, okay, I need to keep my hands out for a while. You
Keep
can't
your hands
do that
out of your
here.
tank in general. I say to everybody, go to Tractor Supply and buy the things that they put on your hands to do cows, you know, whatever the heck they do with the thing. You know what I'm talking. Use that to put your hand in your tank. Your oils, everything on your hands, on your skin, affects the system. When we aren't here and putting our hands in the tank for the weekend, we can tell. As soon as we start messing around, but the problem is I can't feel anything with the gloves I need to be wearing, so I sacrifice the oils and stuff that are coming from my hand to go in the water because it's never really done anything major. But in a smaller system, you know, we're talking about, you know, 1,600 gallons to 4,500 gallons. One person putting their hands in the water on a regular basis is not really going to be messing around with the system much. But in a smaller system, if your hands are going in and out constantly, get one of those gloves, put it on your hand every time. You can buy a mess load of them. I think you can buy a whole box of them with like 50 of them in for like $20. You know, they'll last you forever. That way it keeps your oils and the possibilities of pathogens getting in your water and killing your corals.
I have to wear those when I do tank maintenance because my arms break out from the dry skin after the salt water.
I had the biggest problem we moved over here, and within a couple of years, my hands started to crack and bleed every single week.
You see?
I haven't seen that in
Completely.
so long, Bob. I used to go to the doctors, and they would give me this expensive ass prescription cream, and I'd put this stuff on every night, put cotton gloves on my hands to sleep, and I could never get my hands to heal. And you know what I started doing? I said, I'm not buying any more of this $550 per month cream that's doing nothing. I started taking Neosporin and just putting Neosporin on like it was hand cream and putting the gloves on. My hands started getting better, just like that. And I'm like talking to the doctor about it, and he's like, well, you know, Neosporin, you know, this, that, and I'm like, it works. Your expensive lab experiment, me, is a joke. And I'm not spending any more money on it. I don't have the money to spend on it. Neosporin is cheap, and a tube lasts me for a month. $5, $500. I'll take $5. You know, and then all of a sudden, I don't know if I changed my eating habits or what I did, but I don't have any of those issues anymore with my hands, and thank God I don't, because it was painful. You know, every single finger on your hand is cracked and bleeding.
Cracks all the time, yeah.
And you couldn't figure out why. But yeah, whatever changed in my life fixed that, and I thank the man upstairs for that right now, because that was one of the biggest problems I had with doing what I love. I felt like I was being punished every day because, you know, my hands were bleeding and cracking, and I couldn't.
And it hurts.
I couldn't open bottles. I couldn't, you know, there were so many things I couldn't do. I couldn't, you know, riding a bike hurt. Everything that I used my hands for just hurt constantly. I dealt with it over like a 6, 7 year period of time, and now, for whatever reason, it went away, and now hopefully it doesn't ever come back, because I don't want to have to deal with that crap again. That was a nightmare.
All right, let me ask you some more rapid fires.
Yes.
So I see you have LED and metal halide. What do you prefer?
You missed one.
What else? What
You
T5s?
missed the T5s,
T5s, yes.
Yes. I'm an old school guy. You cannot ever get me away from metal halides and T5s, because you cannot. I don't care what the company tells you. They're blowing smoke up your butt. You can't get a full spectrum out of metal halide unless you have UV and infrared. You might be able to get everything in between there, but there's no manufacturer of any LED for your aquarium that is getting UV, true UV, that is actually enough to penetrate past an inch or two from the light itself.
Yeah, let me correct you on one thing, because you said you can't get that from metal halide, but you meant LED.
Let's start that all over again. So, because I'm an old school reefer, I like the true spectrum, the full spectrum. You know, I can't use the sun, so I use the metal halides because I get a full spectrum. I get UV, I get infrared, I get everything in between. And depending on the Kelvin spectrum, depends on how intense the wavelengths are and where we're targeting. 20K, 10K, 65K. You want to grow your corals, 65. You want to blue them up or color them up better, 20K. They give you what I think is 100% necessary, because we aren't getting, we're trying to duplicate the ocean, right? We're trying to duplicate nature. When nature's not all blue, nature's not all one particular wavelength. When you get down to depth, yes, you're filtering out a lot of the lower wavelengths. You're filtering out the infrared, the oranges, the reds, the blues, the yellows. And the deeper you go, you got greens and blues, purples, violets, and ultra and UV. So UV and all those are going to be your main light sources for corals that live deep. So why would you not want UV coming through and penetrating your water column? Because obviously, you take away the UV from your corals, what effect does it have on your corals? Well, I think I have a theory on what does happen, and we can get into that another time. Actually, I can't. I got to get into it with Tulio when Tulio comes with his meters to show what we've been doing with
after that.
The halides.
I'll come back again and we can talk about it.
So T5s will give you minimal UV and infrared. We think it will not penetrate the water. Meadow halide, we found when Tulio was here last time with his spectrograph that we could put under the water, that we had minute amounts. I'm talking like, I think the 250 watts were giving us like 5 micromoles of UV. If you don't know what micromoles are, Google it. It's about light intensity. A lot of people say the similar term called PAR. It is different, but micromoles is the more correct term.
Yeah.
It's the scientific term per se. And with 5 micromoles of UV penetrating on my corals in the system under our 250 watt, and we had 11 under the 400s, and we had 1 or 2 under the 175s. That's better than 0, but up close to the bulb, it was pretty intense UV lighting coming out of there. So if they tell you you don't need UV on your system, ask them why. If they can't give you a legitimate reason, say, well, the sun produces it, the corals got it in the ocean, why are you telling me that I don't need it? Because it's a legitimate question. If you don't know the real answer, I'm about to put a video out down the road here that will tell everybody why UV is important for an aquarium and why infrared's important for an aquarium. So that is meadow halide. Then we got T5. I have one brand of LED that I really like, actually 2. A main source of LED would be my coral cares. They're the ugliest, heaviest LED on the market. I mean, if you want to see how heavy they are, they're 16 pounds a piece. They're not for everybody, but if you want to grow some acros, I've tried every LED on the market, from Radions to AIs to Illumagics to Apex, or not Apex, AP9X, the Kessels, and not that I don't like the lights, not that I don't like what they do to the corals. In some cases, they make them look better.
But for you, growing coral is important.
We are coral farmers, yes.
Yes.
And my old saying, LEDs for show, meadow halides and T5s for grow. I have to incorporate somehow way into that. The Coral Care LEDs grow your corals almost as good as meadow halides and color them up probably just as good. I've never been able to achieve that out of any of the other lights that I've used, but they're all hobbyist quality lights, and there's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah, it's a different...
Nothing wrong with them at all. They're all good
grades.
lights. They're all good lights. I mean, I got nothing bad to say about any of Ecotech's products, any of AI's products, any of Illumagic's. They're all good products. They're great for hobbyists. They're not for me. I don't want a fancy schmancy light that I got to have an app that I come in and the app got disconnected for somehow way or another, and I got to reconnect it every day.
You mean you don't want to have a discotheque in here?
We were, I'm not going to say what brand. We were offered an LED brand to fill our entire facility because they wanted us to have them, of course, for the brand to be promoted. And to me, that's like paying me to do something. And I just said right flat out to them, I've tried your lights. There's no way in hell you can pay me to put the lights in. Well, we're going to knock the price down to this on them. I said, do you know how many I need? And they're like, no, how many do you need? And I'm like, 18,500 gallons, 12 foot by 6 foot, times like 9, $300? You're gonna give them to me, or you're gonna make me pay for them? Because I'm not giving you a dime. Because I know what's gonna happen, because you're not gonna back them up, because they're gonna get ruined by my open air environment. The coral cares, they look like the damn street lamps. I mean, I can take these down annually.
They look solid.
They're built like brick shit house. I mean, I can take them down annually, take them all out here, lay them all out here take the hose, spray them all off, and not be worried about it.
Do not do that with your lights.
Do not do that with your lights, yes. The coral cares, you can do that with. I don't recommend it. I've done it, but don't say that I told you to do that.
You heard it here first.
But it really is one of the things I loved about the light, and the fact that they're simple. There's a handful of programming, and they don't go offline. They're all connected to Bluetooth pretty much every time I go on, unless the whole place loses power, and then they all have to be reconnected. But 4 in one controller versus each individual one, even though they're daisy chain, they should talk to each other with these other brands. It's just, I don't have time. I have no time. You plug it in, the timer turns it on, the timer turns it off. With these, yes, I still go through the programming in them to give me that, wave of light from low to high to low to give the sunrise sunset effect, which I think is super important. But I also do that with the fact that the reef brights come on, the coral cares come on. The reef brights are on for 1 hour before the programming inside of the coral cares tells them to come on. And then they go through, depending on which mode I use in the coral cares pre-programmed, or I customize one, determines on what time I have that light come on, and then it ramps up, levels off, ramps down. An hour later, all of it goes off. The metal halides, I run my metal halides for 3 hours a day. That's it. It's enough to give the substrate, the UV light that is needed to, hopefully, my theory is correct as we learn it more and more about it, keep the bacteria that can be detrimental to the corals at bay. And that all came about from a torch experiment. But again, that's another tangent I could go on for hours about. The reef brights, honestly, for a simple, basic, easy accent light and the royal blue look of them, they're amazing looking. And I love looking at my corals when the blues are only on. There's certain corals I hate looking at under blues because they just look like the ugliest thing on the planet. And then when the whites are on, you're just like, oh.
That's what
I love about that coral.
My aquarium lights are bookend. In the morning and the night, they are blue, and during the day, it's white. And that's why I like it. I can see everything then.
Yes. And it is important to have a photo period of 12 hours. We're taking corals out of animals that live in between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. In between there, because it's considered the tropics, you get 12 light, 12 dark. You can't prove me wrong because that's a fact. Everybody knows that. If you live up north, like I did when I first got into reefing, I used to keep my lights on for 18 hours a day, and 6 hours of darkness. And I thought about it as I got a little older going, that's about stupid. I'm up north, getting closer to the Arctic Circle, so I'm gonna have, so what do I do? Turn it for 6 hours of light during the winter hours, 6 and 18?
Yeah.
But I was a lot younger then, so I didn't really think logically all the time.
Yeah, a lot of the things we did early on in the hobby, we did because reasons.
Yes.
Well, 1 inch of fish per gallon.
Yeah, and that's to me that's not true either. I mean, if I lived by that, then I'm in some trouble. I mean, I've got my farm systems in the back one's got like 40 some tangs in, and they're all like 15 or between like 15 inches, the biggest one, down to the smallest one, which I think is the Achilles, and he's still 6 inches. So add all those inches up amongst 40 fish, and you're bigger than 1,000 inches probably, or damn close to it. Plus all the little fish in there. So
yeah,
it's how much can your tank handle, the bio load that it can handle. And I could go on a tangent about biomedia and how it's not necessary because we don't really have any biomedia. I just set up a tank for an experiment, and my employee Andreas just goes, well, what are you going to do for biologics? I'm like, nothing. Why? There's no bricks, there's no rock, there's no nothing. I'm like, the coral skeleton's got plenty of bacteria living on it. The water that we put in from one of our systems has plenty of bacteria in it. And the way we take care of our systems with our minor traces, it keeps all the bacteria levels high because of minor traces.
2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, I went from 70-gallon total water volume to 150-gallon total water volume. I got new sand and new rock, but I transferred as much of the water over as I could, and from day one, you know, I got all the water in. Day 3, I put in one acro, or one SPS, one LPS coral for a test. 2 days later, I transferred all of my corals and fish over. Never looked back. Never had a problem.
It brings me up to you know, what you just said about, you know, the way you did your tank transfer. I mean, it makes complete sense. I mean, we cycled this system with ammonia and bacteria, but I could have just put corals in it, and I knew it would have worked fine. But you know, Jake and I talked sometimes every day, and he was setting up this 400-gallon tank in his studio. He's like, I think I'm just going to take this massive Bally Green Slimer that he had, that was growing in one of his other tanks, and I'm going to put it right in the middle. I'm going to put water in it, I'm going to put lights over it, put power heads in it, I'm going to put the coral in it, and show everybody that you don't have to cycle an aquarium to put corals in it. That corals self-acclimate, and corals will cycle the tank for you. And you know, the last photo that I got of that aquarium, it's like 4 months old now, he's got it chocked full of just bommies all over it. It's a bare bottom tank. There's just a big staghorn in the middle and a bunch of bigger acros and other colonies of LPSs and stuff like that in the aquarium with some fish. And he never did anything to it to cycle the aquarium.
No.
And he never got an ammonia spike. He never got a nitrite spike, but he did get the nitrate. And he's like, when I saw nitrate starting to come into the system, I knew my theory was correct, because they never showed the 2 worst ones, which is nitrites and ammonia, but they were obviously being put into the aquarium. But the amount of bacteria that came from the corals themselves, the water that was put in, all was enough to handle the amount of bio load that was going to be put on the system. And if you do things slow and steady, and you have patience, and if you're going to become a reefer and you don't have patience, I'll take your money, because you'll get out, and it'll be a money pit for you. I tell people just to be patient with when you're starting up a reef aquarium.
Yeah, what we're talking about, starting an aquarium quickly, is something I would say for people that have been in the hobby for a while.
Yes.
You know, if you're just starting out, don't do that.
No.
Take the time, do it the long way. It'll be well worth it in the end. The knowledge you'll learn.
It's learning the process, the nitrogen cycle is 101 reefing. If you don't learn and understand that, don't reef. You know, it's like a child. Okay, I relate to what we do here to raising a child. And a lot of people are like, you can't do that as a comparison. But in reality, I'm not saying that I put them before my children. I'm saying it's a lot like them. It's demanding. If you want to have a child, you need to prepare yourself for possibly sleepless nights for weeks or months. And that's a big life changer for a lot of people when they have a child.
Every child is different too. You can have twins and they can be completely different.
You're exactly right, Bob. And then, you know, the thing that's, you know, the whole point of this being is, if you're going to set up a reef aquarium, nurture it, learn it, take care of it, figure out what it needs. Don't let somebody tell you what it needs. That's not a reefer. That's not somebody that's setting themselves up for success. That's somebody that's taking advice from just any Joe Blow out there. And you know what? Joe over here says to do it this way. Jack over here says to do it this way. You know what? He's right and he's right. John says to do it this way. Guess what? John's right too. I'm right too. You're right too. But you can't do that to, it's like you can't take advice on how to raise your child from 15 different people and expect to be able to incorporate any of that into raising your child. Just jump into it and do it. Figure it out on your own. You know, read about it. Don't read forums about it. Read books. People need to get back into reading books.
Joke.
Or find somebody that is putting out content on YouTube that is for the best interest of the corals and not to make money off of you. Let me
throw a plug in here.
I
have nothing to do with this. I don't get any kind of kickback. I'm not a sponsor. Tony Vargas is coming out with a new book. It's a sequel, and I'm drawing a blank.
I love Tony.
Get that book. It's going to be out in January.
Yes, you got to get the book because I'm in it.
You remember the name of it? I'm drawing a blank.
Corals. Corals in the Home Aquarium, Volume 1 and 2.
Yeah. There you go.
I've got 1, and I paid for volume 2, and I keep messaging him going, dude, I paid for this damn book like 8 months ago, bro. When's it coming? COVID slowed us down. Quit using that as an excuse. Get it done. No. But
I know,
no,
I cannot wait for it. I'm dying for it.
We finally got the whole cover and everything finalized, and how it's going to be. So
I saw that yesterday, actually.
I sent him hundreds of photos of corals for that book. I hope he puts, I don't care if he puts 1 in. I always want 1. Out of the 100 that I sent him, I hope he puts 1 in. And I told him, because he was sending me back, he's not up to date with all the classification changes, and I send him ACAM Pachyceptus. Do you know what that is?
I do not.
It used to be commonly known as a Lobophilia Pachycepta.
Okay.
When the taxonomy came out and it was changed to Lobophilia Acanthastria Pachycepta, not many people know about that. They still call them Aussie Lobos. And he's like, oh my God, that Lobo's insane. And I'm like, Tony, you're gonna look kind of like an idiot if you put Lobophilia Pachycepta on this, because it is Acanthastria Pachycepta.
The coral formerly known as.
Lobophilia Pachycepta. And I knew that 10 years ago, that it wasn't a Lobophilia, just because it's so aggressive. And I kind of thought it might have been an ACAN, and it was actually one of the things I was like, yep.
Now, I plugged the book.
That.
I plugged the book, and I didn't even know
you
were
walked through, Andreas, we're videoing.
Seriously?
Yes! You just cut me out of there, dude. I'm messing with you. We'll cut it out and put it in.
No, I'm leaving it in. You're getting a cameo.
So,
now, I did not plug that book because I didn't even know you were going to be in it. So
well,
I didn't plug it for that reason.
I don't know if I'm in it like by name, but I'm sure from knowing Tony that he's going to put at least my company in there for the photographs that were sent, which I could care less. I mean, I helped him out as much as I could, and he got a lot of help from a lot of people, and that's part of the Reefers Code.
Yeah.
It is what it is. You want to give me some credit? Thank you. I appreciate it. But it doesn't make or break a relationship with somebody because of that. Might bum me out a little bit, but it is what it is. That's not what drives me. Getting awareness of these animals and how to handle them and how to take care of them is more important to me than any other aspect of what we do. People need to understand that it is not hard to reef, and it shouldn't be expensive. And if you keep things simple and you listen to people that are proven to do a good job at husbandry of taking care of corals, it's not hard and it's not expensive. I mean, okay, it's more expensive than a freshwater tank, but it doesn't have to be a money pit.
It can be.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, since we're going to wrap up now, but I want to give you a minute for any last thoughts you might have.
Last thoughts. Follow your dreams. Life's too short. If you think you want to do it, do it. I did, and we've got an absolutely amazing coral farm, and I love the fact that I can share what we do with people around the world for that want to be interested, that are interested in what we do. Don't take anything for granted, and if you really want to know more about reefing in a more simple way, I can help, and a lot of other people that have incorporated our method into it can help you as well. The method doesn't work everywhere, but it can eventually be incorporated in most systems. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I gotta close it better than that.
I will.
I know how to close it, but I don't know how to. I don't know what else I should say. I mean, that I think was probably the main thing I wanted to touch was follow your dreams, because I did. I tell everybody.
I will add. Make sure you go on to YouTube and other sources and look for Chris Meckley and ACI on other interviews and stuff like that.
YouTube channels,
other videos, and really learn from this man. He knows what he's talking about.
We have a lot of videos out, and I wasn't going to just say that to blow myself up, but yeah, I mean, we have Richard from Aficionado channel. Do you know who he is?
Mm-hmm.
Good
Not
friend.
personally, but I know him.
He's a really good friend, a great guy. He's done countless videos for me. I don't even know how many anymore. I lost track. I've done a lot of live feeds with Keith from Reef Bums. I got live feeds with Devin Rich from Reef Dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other platforms that I've been on doing live feeds on that Mark Levinson, I did one with him, and I still can't believe that one's got like over 13,000 views, and it was like 3 months ago. I'm just Chris, I'm just Chris. That's all I am. But if you like what you hear and you want to learn from me, those videos can teach you a lot. And I tried to explain it all but with my tangents I go on.
It's all right.
I think I'm realizing that I do have ADHD, and I can be asked a question and I can answer the question and go off totally somewhere else. That's why I said if you do this to me, so I go back, bring it back. So
Talk on.
sometimes it can get a little lengthy in my explanations, but there's a reason behind it. I just want everybody to understand it, that it can be really easy, and if you listen to me thoroughly, my passion shows in that. And if there's anything anybody can do when you have a reef aquarium, develop a passion by learning about the animals. Learn the Latin names. Who cares what the Looney Tune name is, because that just means it's more valuable. And that honestly is not the way you should get into a reef aquarium. You should get into it because they fascinate you and it's interesting. Learning the Latin names will just feed your brain with more information instead of just a Latin name that people are going to forget tomorrow. The Latin name is forever. Bottom line, reefing is a blast. Don't throw too much money at it because it doesn't have to be a money pit. And help is there if you find the right people to listen to. My name's Chris Meckley from ACI Aquaculture, and I hope you enjoyed this little video that Bob was able to put out, and I appreciate you having me on.
And Chris said that I can have 15 minutes uninterrupted with nobody else in the building, and then just hightail it.
15 minutes isn't long enough.
Thank you guys for watching, and
Yeah,
thank
some
you so
bloopers.
much, Chris.
Richard does bloopers. Like he'll keep it rolling, and I won't even know, and we'll just start laughing and doing all kinds of things, and all of a sudden he'll send me the backside, the bloopers of me and him and whoever's in the video just hysterically laughing about something that I did or somebody did, and he's like, should I put them at the end? And I'm like, yeah, wait till the credits roll. I said, he's like, because I do that periodically. He's like, people wait and watch the credits and wait to the end because they want to see what the bloopers are.
Oh no, I listen to it on podcast every time, and I always and it took me a while to catch there's like another 10 minutes on here. What are they doing?
Yeah, what's going on?
Listening.
Yep.
And it's usually just nothing, but
usually it is. But
it's so
sometimes
funny.
something funny comes out, or I've had some oh shit moments where I was said some things I probably shouldn't have said, and Richard's like, I'll delete that. And then he sends it to me when he's in the middle of editing the photo. He's like, just so you know, I'm hitting the delete button right now to get that whole segment going. This is usually me going off on a rant on something that's just, not logical, and me just, being me. Which again, depends how you take me. Whether you like me or not.
It'll probably take me a week or so to edit this, but I'll let you know when it's ready.
Whenever you do, I can't wait.
There'll be some shorts on TikTok and
Awesome.
on YouTube as well.
Awesome.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate you coming. Sorry about I'm glad you enjoyed the time here when you could just look around.
Oh, I really did.